Cole Palmer out until the international break. Tosin Adarabioyo out until the international break. Wesley Fofana knocked out by one of his own players. Benoit Badiashile and Romeo Lavia? Who knows? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And I endeavoured today to make sure I'd watched the press conference before I did my match preview video because of the few mistakes I made last time in the Lincoln game. Oh, how I wish I hadn't done that. Mate, so we are going to do the Brighton preview today, but also we're just going to talk about the insane amount of injuries and how the squad is just absolutely decimated at the moment. But guys, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so Maresca was actually looking pretty chill in his press conference, regardless of whatever we think about his tactical decisions and odd substitutions and whatever recently. Got to give it to the man. He knows how to keep his cool in a pressured situation in front of lots of cameras. So one of the first questions that was asked to him today was about Cole Palmer. Obviously, Cole Palmer was, never going to play in the Lincoln game, but most recently came off in the Man United game because of a recurrence of that groin injury. Maresca said quite plainly, we think we're just going to give Cole Palmer for 2-3 weeks until after the international break to see if it gets better. So we're out without Cole Palmer now until the international break, which means 3 games. So interestingly enough, he was also asked about the option for surgery, and Maresca said, no, we're just going to give him the time off to see if he recovers naturally, and we don't think surgery is going to be necessary. That is interesting because that is actually what they tried to do with Reece James as well. Reece James was obviously in and out of the team for a really long time before his big injury layoff, and that was when he had the surgery. So with Reece James's injury, which was different to Cole Palmer's, don't get me wrong, but they tried to see if he could heal naturally rather than having to go in for surgery. And I guess that's twofold, right? The one being that surgery means you're absolutely going to be out for a significant period of time. And also, I read something saying that if you get surgery, it can cause you to play through, depending on the injury, but it can cause you to be in pain a lot more often, even if the injury isn't going to not as much pain as before, but a little bit of pain throughout the rest of your career or whatever. So it's a balancing act, right? Players generally don't want to go for surgery unless it's necessary. And again, what that might tell you is, do you remember Dario Asugo got injured in the international break and went straight into surgery? So that means, I assume, that they looked at that instantly and went, yeah, you're going to have surgery for that. There's no natural recovering from it and in a good way. So no Cole Palmer. Okay, 3 weeks, 3 games up until the end of the international break. Means I assume you won't feature for England as well. Can you imagine? Oh, make the scenes. But yeah, that's a tough one, man. As far as the centre of attack goes for this game, we will be without Facundo Buonanotte as well, because he's a Brighton player on loan at Chelsea. And if anyone knows about not being able to play against parent clubs, it's us, because we see that all of the time. So yeah, no Facundo Buonanotte either. So that, the options for centre attack aren't exactly myriad at the moment, but we're just going to have to see what happens with that. So moving on to Tosin Adarabioyo. So he didn't play, supposedly was going to play the Lincoln game, but didn't play the Lincoln game because he has a problem with his calf and is also going to be out until the end of the international break. Oh dear. So that's a quite a big loss, because we've got Liverpool and Benfica in these games. Do you know what I mean? And Tosin is the de facto replacement for Levi Colwill's Pasi Maguba position that Maresca favours so much in his system and formation. So that leaves us without Cole Palmer and Tosin Adarabioyo until the end of the international break. As for the Brighton game, we will also be without Wesley Fofana, because Philip Jorgensen banged him out in the Lincoln game. Literally just smashed him in the face. Because why not, right? Things aren't bad enough already. Let a bit of your anger out on your own teammates. Why not? So, because it's been deemed as a concussion, you have to take 10 to 12 days. If you've had a concussion, you're not allowed to play a game for 10 to 12 days. So even if Fofana feels fine and is fit or whatever, the rules state absolutely can't do that. And good, fine. Do you know what I mean? It's the last thing we need is Wesley Fofana losing multiple brain cells because he decided to try and play a game after he'd been concussed. Even if that's unlikely, it doesn't matter. 100% agree with that. Okay, fine. But ultimately, that leaves us out without those two centre-backs. Obviously, Levi Colwell's still out for the season. No change there. Benoit Badiashile, the phantom centre-back that we seem to remember in tale stories of a time that we had more than two centre-backs, all right? So essentially what this means, and I'll get into it a bit more in my predicted 11, is Achiampong is the guy for the next 3 games, man. And genuinely, we don't really have any other choice. Unless Benoit Badiashile happens to be fine for the next game. Do you know what I mean? But again, throwing him in against Benfica after a long injury layoff is probably not a great idea, is it? So Achiampong looks like he's going to be getting a lot of chances. Another interesting thing about the press conference, I actually appreciated the candid nature of this question. One of the reporters asked Enzo Maresca, Enzo Fernandez has played like 1 million games for you. Do you know what I mean? Of the last 60 odd games, he's played like 65 games or something. He's played like nearly 60. Is there an opportunity somewhere to play Santos and give him a break? You know, this, that, and the other. And Maresca basically sidestepped the question, which I assume means that he doesn't fancy playing Santos as a starter when Enzo Fernandez feels that he's available. He said he can play as a number 6. He can play as an attacking midfielder. 90% of our games, he plays as an attacking midfielder. So regardless of Santos being fit, full of energy and raring to go, I guess we can probably still expect to see Enzo Fernandez get these games. So it's all just a bit of a mess, isn't it? It's all just a bit of a mess. Our players are dropping like flies, doesn't even seem to cut it anymore. Do you know what I mean? We've got a literal, I don't even know, it's like an epidemic, a plague has affected Chelsea. You know, it's probably time to judge. Remember at the start of the Pochettino season, we had like a weekly update sheet, didn't we? A weekly update sheet with our many list of like 20 players that were injured. We're very nearly back in that territory. It's absolutely crazy how many injuries we've got. It's genuinely crazy at this point in the season. This is the 6th Premier League game of the season. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what is even going on? But that aside, let's actually talk a little bit about the Brighton game, right? So Brighton have had patchy form this season so far. They most recently had a pretty strong outing in the Premier League against Tottenham, and it was a 2-2 draw. And I actually caught a bit of that game because it was on just before the Chelsea Man United game, and they look good, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, they look good. They look like they were trying things against Tottenham that would cause us some trouble, like looping long balls and, you know, a bit of Route 1 football, counter-attacking transitional stuff. So if we, with our decimated squad, try and go in for a possession-heavy game, I think that'll probably put us at a disadvantage, truth be told. So I wouldn't be surprised to see us play a little bit less greedy with the ball, and then try and kind of give them the ball a little bit more and try and create counter-attacking chances for ourselves as well. But at the end of the day, Brighton had like 2-3-0 losses at the start of the season. In their first 5, they've lost 2, won 2, drawn 1. I think it is. So their form is patchy. Up until Man United, we were undefeated. So we've won 2, drawn 2, lost 1. So I guess our form's only a little bit better than theirs because we've won 1 more game than they have. But we've lost 1 less as well. We've lost 1 less. So Brighton is always going to be a tricky customer. There's been something in the Brighton games for a little while now as well, hasn't there? Ever since we decided to start shopping there en masse, do you know what I mean? Since we got our Brighton loyalty card, we have been... These games feel a little bit more heated because there seems to be this like, yeah, you can give us all this money and buy all of our players and we're still going to batter you. We obviously had last year, we lost back-to-back games against Brighton in the Premier League and the League Cup. The League Cup, I still maintain Enzo Maresca just tanked it, man. He didn't even make any subs in that game. It was outrageous. But like I say, Brighton's always going to be a tough game. Hutzler is a very good manager. They do have, you know, still some really good players. Karen Matoma, obviously, we all know about him, a really good-looking player. So it's, you know, to say that we're going to probably wind up with a kind of B.5 team, do you know what I mean? Like a mix of the first teamers we've got available, but substituted by players that either aren't first teamers or haven't had very much time in the team yet. This is going to be a tricky one for sure. And with that in mind, let's get into my predicted starting 11 from our decimated Chelsea squad. How do we think we're going to line up against Brighton? Right, so in the goalkeepings, Robert Sanchez comes back. Fortunately, the ban he got for getting sent off in the United game was only a 1-match ban because it was for denying a goal-scoring opportunity rather than for like a rash or dangerous challenge. That was news to me. I didn't actually know that. So rash and dangerous challenges, 3-game ban. Denying a goal-scoring opportunity for a straight red, only a 1-game ban. And to be fair, that hasn't made any difference, has it? Because Philip Jorgensen would have played the Lincoln game anyway. So we get Robert Sanchez back in the sticks as we expected to. I did a bit of a video yesterday on goalkeepers about Mike Maignan and, what might be happening with the future of that. And I just think it's crazy that, like, the level of Stockholm syndrome we've achieved, that we're almost looking forward to seeing Robert Sanchez back in the sticks. How did that happen? But that's what it's going to be. That's where we are. Unless he gets injured, who knows? Because as we're seeing right now, that could just happen. Right back, I'm going to go Malagusto. He hasn't been playing amazingly well, but also not amazingly badly. And he's fit and got lots of energy. And if we are going to try and play a little bit less possession-y based football and a little bit more bang him on the counter-attack and a bit more transitional, then his speed, pace, agility and fitness will be really useful for that. Left back, the return of Marc Cucurella, who we bought from Brighton, and absolutely, I mean, I'm glad that we saw him get a bit of a rest in the Lincoln game, but he ended up coming on in midfield because our B team can't even be trusted to beat League One opposition. But at the end of the day, he didn't play the full 90 minutes, right? So, and he didn't play left back, which I assume would probably be a bit more of an intense role for him because he plays everywhere when he plays left back, and it just makes sense, doesn't it? Marc Cucurella is one of the few players that we can rely on to be good every single game at the moment, so he gets the start at left back. Centre back, so Trevor Chalobah and Josh Achiampong. And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna pretend like there's any other options and do them separately or whatever, because there just isn't. They are the only two full fit senior centre backs we have at the club at the moment. Trevor Chalobah, fair play, he's been playing pretty good recently and definitely, has earned his way back into the team after all of the mess with being in the bomb squad and the Crystal Palace loan and then getting brought back halfway through last season. Trevor Chalobah is pretty reliable at the moment, and Josh Achiampong is probably going to play that, as I said, de facto Levi Colwill, Passy Maguba role, where he kind of goes in the middle and dictates play and whatever. So I would imagine that probably to be Trevor Chalobah on the right, Josh Achiampong on the left, but really in the middle, and then probably Marc Cucurella as more of a left centre-back rather than super inverting midfielder. Right, so midfield pivot. So we'll start with the guy who I absolutely think will play it, and it's another ex-Brightoneer. It is Moises Caicedo, who did actually get a rest in the last game, which is well-deserved, very, very much needed. Kind of like Cucurella, absolutely needs to be on the pitch all of the time, one of our few players that we can rely on pretty consistently. And next to him, I'm actually going to put Reece James because of the depth situation and whatever, and kind of like we did against United. I don't expect, we need to win this game, man. They're all must wins at this point, aren't they? Because we've come off of the back of a couple of losses in the Premier League and a difficult win against Lincoln. This has to be the game that kickstarts our momentum, if that's even possible, unless they've kind of written it off and say, yeah, forget about momentum until we've got players back after the international break. But yeah, I expect us to be a little bit more conservative, and because of the transitional nature of the game instead, I imagine that we will, it won't be as much about like passy. People like Reece James in midfield can launch balls forward and create, transitions and counter-attacks and stuff. So, yeah, I expect to see Reece James in the centre of the park for this one. So, into my attacking three, obviously Cole Palmer's out, no Buonanotte. I'm going to put Enzo Fernandez in the centre because, as Maresca just said, he plays as an attacking midfielder for 90% of these games. And like I say, I do feel we'll be a little bit more conservative with this game in general. I don't really rate this idea, to be honest. This is more of what I think will happen rather than more what I want to happen. Obviously, I'd love to see Esteval in the 10, but I think that, being that we need to win this game, and that means ultimately with the rest of the attacking spots, we need to try not to put on too many players that need experience and need to warm up still. It makes sense to me to put Enzo Fernandez in the middle. On the right-hand side, I think it might be Pedro Neto again. So that's actually how we started in the Man United game, wasn't it? And I'll spoil my left one now because that actually helps me explain it a little bit. I think we'll see Esteval Willian on the left, and that is how we started in the United game, and Maresca was obviously quite keen to see that. And I imagine they could also swap over a little bit as well. So Pedro Neto on the right, Esteval Willian on the left, Enzo Fernandez in the middle, and João Pedro up top again. A little bit cobbled together. Still, Achiampong having so much pressure under him. It's not even just about this game, man. Achiampong's going to be like, I'm going to be this role for the next 3 games. He has to take this opportunity, man. I really, really hope that this is transformative for Achiampong and he can kind of break through the I'm an academy player thing into, no, I actually deserve to be part of this team. Jamie Gittins was lambasted by Enzo Maresca for his last game. Alejandro Garnacho didn't exactly have an amazing showing. So while I expect probably to see Alejandro Garnacho brought on at some point, maybe if we're winning and then, or if we need a goal or whatever, and then maybe Esteval can get a chance into the 10 there. But yeah, I don't think starting Alejandro Garnacho and Jamie Gittins is in the remit for Enzo Maresca at the moment. And I also largely think that because they both started the Lincoln game, right? So it makes sense to me that Esteval was rested, so you would almost thought he's going to play. Neto did come on towards the end of the game against Lincoln as well, but ultimately that was, like Cucurella, kind of a rest for him. So I expect to see these two on the wings, and like I said, João Pedro up top, who I hope can find his way into this game, man. Maybe playing a slightly different style of football rather than the possessional thing might help, and give him a little bit of license to, do you know what I mean, drop deep and try and connect play together and stuff as well, because if we do have Enzo Fernandez there instead of Cole Palmer, then maybe João Pedro can take on a little bit of that creator role as well and create opportunities for the other guys. But guys, that is it. That is my proposed starting 11 for the Brighton game. Let me know what you think in the comments about my starting 11 and about the injury voodoo that we're all going through at the moment, man. What is this? This is worrying. I am starting to feel a little bit for Enzo Maresca now. Aside from all of the bad decisions, all this, that and the other, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there was so much promise at the start of the season, and we've lost like 6 players, or say 6 first teamers, really important players, to injuries, and things are getting really difficult. And Cole Palmer's turning into a bit of a Lavia situation, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, can he, can't he? And for the moment, it's turning out that no, he can't. So it's a really difficult one, man, but we need to win this game tomorrow, absolutely. And if that means we've got to dig in, get gritty, and you know, kind of put the party round the back, try and play lovely football thing aside or whatever, then we just got to do it, man, because we've got to start picking up points. Absolutely have to start picking up points. We're curtailing towards 10 games, and we've got Liverpool after in the Premier League after Brighton, right? So it would be reasonable to assume that we're probably going to lose that game based on all of the injuries and stuff that we've had, and the fact that we've got zero momentum coming out of the last few games, do you know what I mean? So, and obviously we'll have to see how the Benfica game goes. But guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will be live streaming tonight with the Blue Lounge. I think we're going to do a match preview. Be really, really interesting to get everyone's thoughts, feelings and opinions about all of this injury, noise and nonsense that we're going through at the moment. And I really, really can't wait. So guys, make sure you tune into the Blue Lounge tonight at 10 o'clock and I will catch you there. Take it easy. Peace.